company that invented the modern web browser gave it away for free. Microsoft bundled Internet Explorer with every copy of Windows, charged nothing for it, and called it a service to consumers. But that free product would eventually cost Microsoft 1.7 billion euros in penalties, the largest compliance failure in European competition history. It is 1998. Microsoft controls 95% of the desktop operating system market. Windows runs on virtually every personal computer sold in Europe, and Internet Explorer ships pre-installed on all of them. The browser wars are over before they begin. Netscape, the company that pioneered commercial web browsing, is being crushed, not because Internet Explorer is better, but because it comes free with the operating system that every computer already runs. Sun Microsystems, the company behind Java, files a formal complaint with the European Commission in Brussels. Their argument is precise. Microsoft is using its Windows monopoly to crush competitors in adjacent markets by bundling its own products and refusing to share the technical information rivals need to build compatible software. The Commission opens an investigation that will consume 6 years. Investigators at DG Competition examine how Microsoft tied Windows Media Player to the operating system, making it impossible for competitors like Real Networks to reach consumers on equal terms. They find internal documents showing Microsoft deliberately withheld server interoperability specifications to prevent rival software from working properly with Windows. The investigation reveals a deliberate pattern. Microsoft leveraged its dominance in operating systems to extend control into media players, server software, and ultimately browsers. In March 2004, Commissioner Mario Monti steps to a podium at the Berlaymont building in Brussels and announces the verdict: a €497 million fine, the second largest in EU competition history at that time. Microsoft must offer a version of Windows without Media Player and must share interoperability information with competitors within 120 days. But Microsoft's response to the ruling would prove more costly than the fine itself. The company released Windows XP N Edition, the version stripped of Media Player. They priced it identically to the standard edition and sent it to retailers across Europe. The result was extraordinary: 1,787 copies sold. Retailers refused to stock it. Consumers did not want it. The remedy was technically fulfilled, but commercially absurd. Meanwhile, Microsoft dragged its feet on sharing interoperability documentation. Brad Smith, the company's general counsel, insisted the work was complex. He told the press that producing the documentation required hundreds of employees and many millions of dollars. He described it as over 8,000 pages of technical specifications. The Commission was not persuaded. They set a daily penalty of €1.5 million for non-compliance, effective June 21, 2006. Those daily penalties accumulated for 496 consecutive days. On February 27, 2008, Commissioner Neelie Kroes announced the cumulative penalty: €899 million. The largest compliance fine in 50 years of European competition enforcement. In her words, Microsoft was the first company in 50 years of EU competition policy that the Commission had to fine for failure to comply with an antitrust decision. She added that she hoped the decision closed a dark chapter in Microsoft's record of non-compliance. And then a company with less than 1% market share did something unexpected. On December 12, 2007, Opera Software, a Norwegian browser maker based in Oslo, filed a formal antitrust complaint. Their CEO Jon von Tetzchner, their Deputy General Counsel Jason Hoyder, and their Chief Technology Officer Hakon Weum Lee signed the filing. Their argument was specific. Microsoft was doing to Internet Explorer exactly what it had done with Windows Media Player, tying it to the operating system, making it the default for every Windows user, and suffocating competitors who could not reach consumers through any other distribution channel. Von Tetzchner told the press they were filing the complaint on behalf of all consumers who are tired of having a monopolist make choices for them. Opera's legal team explicitly cited the 2004 ruling as precedent. The European Court of First Instance had confirmed that Microsoft illegally tied Windows Media Player to Windows. Opera was simply asking the Commission to apply the same clear principles to the Internet Explorer tie. The Commission opened a formal investigation in January 2008. Within 12 months, they issued a statement of objections to Microsoft. The Commission's concern was specific. The ubiquity of Internet Explorer creates artificial incentives for content providers and software developers to design websites primarily for Internet Explorer, which ultimately risks undermining competition and innovation in the provision of services to consumers. Microsoft negotiated rather than fight, a second full proceeding. Brad Smith proposed a remedy. Instead of unbundling the browser from Windows, Microsoft would present every Windows user in Europe with a ballot screen showing 12 different browsers in randomized order. Users could choose which ones to install. The screen would display the 5 most popular browsers prominently, with 7 additional options accessible by scrolling. The Commission accepted this proposal in December 2009, making it legally binding for 5 years. Neelie Kroes announced that millions of European consumers would benefit from having a free choice about which web browser they use. The browser Ballot launched in March 2010. It arrived via Windows Update on every computer where Internet Explorer was set as the default browser. 200 million European users were due to see it. In its first 8 months, 84 million browsers were downloaded through the choice screen. Internet Explorer's share dropped 2.5% in France, 1.3% in Italy, and 1% in the United Kingdom within the first weeks alone. Firefox reported significant growth in new users. Opera claimed its downloads tripled across Belgium, France, Spain, Poland, and the United Kingdom. If you are finding this case as revealing as I did, consider subscribing. I publish a new investigation every week, but the Ballot had problems from the start. A JavaScript bug caused Internet Explorer to appear in the rightmost position 50% of the time when viewed from within IE itself. In Poland, a double quote mark error in the code meant the randomization never functioned at all, displaying browsers in a fixed order. These technical flaws were eventually patched, but a far larger failure was already underway, and nobody in Brussels knew about it. In May 2011, Microsoft released Windows 7 Service Pack 1. The update contained what the company later described as a technical error. The browser Ballot screen disappeared entirely from that version. For 14 months, 15 million Windows users across Europe never saw the choice screen they were legally entitled to receive. The Commission only discovered this omission in July 2012, more than a year after it began. They opened a non-compliance investigation immediately. On March 6, 2013, the Commission imposed a €561 million fine. It was the first time in history the Commission had fined a company for breaching a commitments decision. The press release stated plainly that this was the first time the Commission had to fine a company for non-compliance with commitments. Commissioner Kroes confirmed that the Commission acted because Microsoft did not give users the web browser choice they had agreed to in 2009. Brad Smith called it a technical glitch. The Commission called it a breach of binding legal obligations. 15 million users over 14 months. The distinction between those descriptions cost €500 million. The commitments expired in December 2014. By then, the browser market had already transformed beyond recognition. Internet Explorer's European share had collapsed from 95% in the early 2000s to under 20% by 2013. Chrome had overtaken it entirely by 2012. Firefox peaked at nearly 32% in 2009 before declining as Chrome rose. Opera, the company that triggered the entire investigation, still held less than 2%. The total financial damage across all Microsoft EU antitrust proceedings reached €2.24 billion, 497 million for the original abuse, 280.5 million in early penalties, 899 million for sustained non-compliance with interoperability requirements, 561 million for the Ballot screen failure. But the financial penalties were not the lasting consequence. The Microsoft cases established that bundling a free product with a dominant platform constitutes an abuse of market power. That legal principle became the template for subsequent enforcement against other technology companies accused of similar practices. It directly inspired the Digital Markets Act, the European regulation that now governs all major digital platforms as designated gatekeepers, prohibiting self-preferencing and forced bundling. Microsoft itself eventually abandoned its own browser engine entirely, building its current browser on the same open-source technology its former competitors developed. The company that once controlled how 95% of Europeans accessed the internet now uses someone else's code to do it. The next case I am covering involves a cartel that operated in plain sight for 3 years on a recorded messaging system, manipulating the rate that determined what €350 trillion in financial contracts were worth. That investigation starts with a single phone call to